Hey, this is Brian Hopkins. We're going to talk about and show how to take a soil sample. I'm here at my sister's home in Hampton, Virginia. Behind me, she lives in one of these condo units, which is one of the interesting things about taking a soil sample. You know, we ask the question, well, where do I take the sample? Do I poke one hole, or do I take several holes? And if you look at this place, you got a whole bunch of different yards here. You can just tell just by the mowing that each one is managed a little separately. Everyone's fertilized a little separately. So if I was managing this whole complex, that would be a question I would want to ask. Like, well, do each one of these little lawns, are they all separate? Do they get treated the same, or are they different? So that's a question that's number one. That's where you start is what area am I going to sample? If I have different soil types, I have different management areas, I want to take separate soil samples. I certainly wouldn't want to sample the shrubbery areas and combine them in with the turf grass, for example. Like, for example, if you look over here, there's, some this island out here in the parking lot. Let's say I was having some trouble with those plants and I wanted to take a soil sample. I wouldn't include that in with the grass, and doing so is just a big waste. It'd be better to take less samples of just some areas. If you can't afford to do everything you want, let's at least do what we do right. All right, so then what do we do? Well, one of the things we take a look at is what tools we use. So I've got my handy dandy truck here with my awesome toolbox. And by doing that, I get to write it off my taxes now. It's great. Okay, so I've got some soil probes in here. I've got, for example, I've got this dude that's I've got a probe in here that I can just take out. I can carry this with me on the plane, for example. Here is another probe that I use. This is my Mascaro soil profiler. If I want to look at the sample, I want to see roots, I typically use this guy. But if I'm trying to take a soil sample to send in for analysis, I need less soil. I don't want to take too much soil. I'd rather take a whole bunch of different spots and a little bit easier and faster. So I use this guy. Now there are other versions of this, some more fancy, some less expensive, but I kind of like this one. I can step on it. I can easily get the sample I want. So this is what we're going to use. I've got my soil bag, and I'm going to put my sample in there. I've got a little bucket here. Take my sample, put it in my bucket. I want to make sure that my bucket is basically clean. I especially don't want to have any fertilizer. That would be some of the most, if I got a little tiny bit of dust in there, that's not terrible. But if I have things that are nutrient related, I could grossly contaminate my sample. So again, fertilizers, oftentimes one of the things that's really a problem that we would want to avoid in these. And those are often, a lot of folks who are dealing with soils are also dealing with fertilizers. So I pretty frequently see contamination. So we want to avoid that. All right. So what I do is I go out there and I take the sample. You can see my open face probe here, open face probe right there. How deep do I take the sample? Usually I like to say depth of rooting. So for turf grass, usually like 4 to 6 inches. This grass behind me is a Bermuda grass. It's super thatchy. It's got like 2 inches of thatch. So I'm going to actually go past that and go like down into the soil about 4 inches. And I get, 4 to 6 is pretty good. If I'm sampling, a garden, I might go like the depth of tillage is usually what I tell people. So, all right, so here's what we're going to do. All right, so you can see that I took 2, and we call each one of those a core. There's one of them. I just knocked one of them into the bucket. I'm going to keep doing that because that's not enough of a sample. I need to be able to take probably somewhere between 8 to 15, depending on the depth of the sample. I need to be able to fill up this bag. I always tell people we need about a pint of soil I like these little cloth bags. They breathe. It's important that the sample doesn't become anaerobic or too hot. You can put them in a paper bag that if the soil is wet, that's going to be a problem. It'll dissolve the bag. You can put them in a Ziploc bag as long as you get it to the lab fairly quickly. But again, I don't like letting that sit around in those Ziploc bags or plastic lined bags. Usually a soil test lab will provide a bag for you, but be wary of those plastic bags, plastic lined bags, that they don't store your sample in there too long because it can change the values actually. Make sure you label the sample. This one's got a nice little piece of paper there that I can label each one accordingly if I'm sending in multiple samples, so I know which one goes with which area. And that's it.